I must admit, I don't love recording these ones because sometimes I think it makes people a bit shy about the questions that they ask and the conversation, but especially at the beginning, but you kind of get over that. So hopefully we'll be fine. So, welcome. This is Fundamentals of Contract Law. I don't really have very much of a plan for these drop-in shoots. I run them primarily for online students, which all three of you are from memory. Hey, Min, you're the one I'm not 100% sure. I think you are. Unless you're also Min. Do you get called Min? And that might be, there's a Min in the face-to-face class. So until I see your face, I don't know. But I let the, I'm very happy. Yes. So you are online, yes? Ace. Okay. Yes. Sorry, I thought I'd stop speaking and asking 50 questions so that I knew which one you were answering. Make it fair. I'm very happy, and I hope you are too, for face-to-face students to join these. I think of you all as one big group, and the way I see it, if it works for you to attend face-to-face, you are more than welcome to do that. And if it works for them to do it 100% online, then I have no issue with that at all. You are actually technically in two different classrooms, so as in virtual classrooms on Canvas. So that means that in the discussions, you will have the discussions for the online students, and they'll have discussions for the face-to-face students. What I tend to do, if something particularly interesting or that I think is really important comes up just in the virtual space, I tend to copy it over into both. And as you might have heard me say in the recordings, like if people send me emails with questions that I think are valuable questions, and that happens a lot. And I think some people think that they can sort of get the secret knowledge if they just send me an email, but the way I see it, there is no secret knowledge. So if you send me a good question, I will share it with everybody in both groups. I will anonymize it, obviously, but I'll share it that way. So given particularly that you're all OUA students, and it's actually a couple of OUA students who asked me to record, what I was hoping to do this time is just have a really quick chat about your assessment in particular and how the Canvas shell works, and then really just have whatever conversation you want to have. And what tends to happen, because week one there's quite a lot of reading to do, but it's very much preparatory, and it's not really getting into the guts of it. But don't worry, we will be in the guts of it from tomorrow night onwards, and we'll be doing quite a lot of content very quickly. And so it'll be much easier for you to focus questions and for us to have discussions. And so really, these are absolutely, I'm running them as a tutorial. It's not something I really have to do. It's just I've found it's been a useful way and a much more rewarding way for me personally to be able to interact with online students in particular, because I'm just I'm a person who likes to talk things through and likes to look people in the eye, and this is about as close as I can get to doing that in some ways. But I think for some students it works really well too as a kind of anchor point in the week, a bit like what going to a lecture might be. That if by Sunday night, particularly as all of you in OUA will have the opportunity to do an assessable task that's due every Sunday night from next week onwards anyway, it's kind of a good opportunity for you to come in and ask a question or to get involved that way. So absolutely not compulsory, nothing is, other than actually doing enough assessment tasks to get you across the line, I guess. But that's kind of the rationale for it. So make sense?
Yes.
Lovely. So what I'm going to do, I think, first is just share my screen. I think you should be able to see this. It's actually not at home. I'm in the OUA version of Canvas. And basically it's organized very much the same way. Actually, you're seeing my teacher version, so you see a few extra menus and stuff that you wouldn't otherwise see. You will also see most likely the marking that I have to do, although there's nothing coming up yet for you guys. So basically I just thought I'll just give you a quick walkthrough of probably the best way to navigate Canvas so you can find what you're looking for and what you need to do. Many people start straight at this syllabus button, which is actually a pretty smart place to start. And this is the one area where the face-to-face page looks different. Actually, the content is different from the OUA page. So if anybody looking at this later comes from the face-to-face world, they'll be thinking, oh, there's this big table in here that tells me lots of things. That table is quite helpful, but it's just there because the rules say I have to do it. And actually all that information is reproduced here automatically. And one of the things that concerns me with the table is it's a manual change every time. So if something changes in the syllabus or in the due dates or anything like that, and we don't remember to physically change it, it can end up with differences, and it's really confusing, where this course summary is absolutely accurate. And so with any class that you go into, I would strongly recommend that you go and just check this out. Another way to check it out is through the calendar. And it's really the same thing. This is just sort of the big list. Now, I don't know that every teacher does this, but I put in the lecture times as well and what the lecturer is about. Sorry, this is probably should have prepared for you a little bit in advance, given I knew what I was going to do. So I teach a number of courses, so I've just turned off the ones that aren't relevant to you. But here I've got, let me remember how it works. I think that the light blue is OUA and the green is face-to-face. But as you can, blue, light blue must be OUA. So basically, what I've got is the timetable for the class, so that's when the actual class is in OUA, in face-to-face, or at the beginning of each week, I've basically each Monday told you OUA people, this is what the topic or topics we'll be covering this week are. And other events that are important to you. So for example, the content for your very first assignment, significant assignment, the actual question will be made available to you next Friday, the same time that I'm suggesting we all go out and have a drink together. It's all right, I'll get it out nice and early, and those people who come to a drink might be able to start workshopping it. You just never know. So that's a really handy way to work out what's going on. So, and one of the things that you will see is each week there is what looks like an assignment, kind of is an assignment for you. 5% of your overall marks, if I just go back where I was a second ago, 5% of your overall marks are based on, and this is for OUA students only, are based on your best 5 results from what is called a discussion board task. There are 10 of them. So at the end of the day, it's worth 5%. Those of you who are not mathematically challenged will work out it probably it's not going to make a great deal of difference whether you even do it. Many students actually only do 2 or 3 out of the 10. Many students do 10 out of 10, even though the first 10 they will have got significant enough marks with rounding to mean that they're getting an HD for that section anyway. Why do it? Basically, it's very difficult when you're an OUA student to interact with other students. and to really get a sense of what other people are thinking and doing. The way these discussion board tasks are set up, they are really like exam problems. They're quite, a couple of them are actually taken from previous exams. So they give you a sense of the kind of questions you get asked in an exam. There are two kinds. There are problem-solving questions and some critical analysis questions. They give me an opportunity to look at how you're working and give you feedback. And they're also set up so that when you submit, then you can see what other people have submitted, or if you're the first one, you can come back later and see what other people have submitted. If you don't submit, you never see. It's basically, the deal is, if you participate in the conversation, you get to see what other people do. I've got no real data on it, but my observation is that there is a direct correlation between students who do these tasks regularly and their exam performance. And the thing is, they're actually quite time consuming to provide feedback for. Basically, from my point of view, it's not an particularly efficient use of my time, but I think it's a valuable use of my time. So from a face-to-face perspective, I just physically can't manage being able to provide that much feedback given the nature of the numbers. So for the face-to-face students who do have the opportunity to come to class, who do have the opportunity to hear the responses that other people have and to talk to them in public, that's why I think actually you've still got that opportunity. And to be frank, the way it works for the face-to-face students, those discussion board tasks are still there for them. And I will always give the feedback or do the feedback for the OUA students first, because it actually goes to their mark. But if by the time I've done that, I will then give feedback to all of the OUA students. They don't get a grade, but I will give you feedback. Many students have told me that, in fact, seeing different responses and having the opportunity to have discussions with students about, well, why did they think that, or what else did they think, was actually more valuable than my feedback, sadly. But so that's really what that assignment task is about. Like they're really minor. So there are 10 opportunities to do it. The mark is based on your best 5 contributions. The idea is it should be the least pressure thing that you do at uni, including less pressure than turning your camera on for one of these sessions. So I want them to be fun. I want them to give you an opportunity to actually do it. And again, this is probably based more on my own experience than anything else. I find we get confirmation bias really easily, and that if I propose a problem and you think about it, and then I tell you what the answer is, you go very immediately to, oh yeah, that's sort of what I would have done. Where the actual act of writing it down or committing to a yes or a no, which is one of the reasons why I use polls in classes so much, is it really helps you to think, well, actually, what would I have said in an exam? How would I have explained that? How would I have structured it? So, questions, concerns, thoughts about that? I think it's going to be one of those days where I do quite a lot of talking, just at a guess.
Yeah, and it sounds good from here.
That's good. So as you can see these, so they're easy to find as you've got your dates. Some people will find it, you paper people will find it really useful to just print this out, see what the dates are, etc. But a little trick for young players, by the way, with the calendar, sorry, my computer's just going to be really slow today, just to be annoying. There's this calendar feed that's available to all of you too. So if you use a diary on your phone, or Outlook at work, or Google Calendar, or any of the main calendars, you can actually publish your personal Canvas calendar feed and pick it up off your phone or off your computer. And that can be quite helpful, because even though it's just got the due date, you can then just click through straight away to see what the problem is. and to get the other content. And actually looking at this one, so, and we all, you know, basically Canvas is just kind of a website that's been put together by academics like me. So yeah, it doesn't work as well as you would want it to, but I wonder why that's saying 0 points possible. I need to fix that. Lots of little things go wrong, unfortunately. If you do nothing else, even if you don't do this first problem that will happen next week, do watch this little 10-minute video from Andrew, which goes through, and you might have seen it before if you've done another subject, because it does go through how to use IRAC. And I think that's particularly useful for these little assignments. And you will see, in order to see how the assignments are marked, this little ellipsy thing here will bring up the rubric, and you can always have a look at what's being marked. And so what I'm taking into account as I'm doing the marking. And for problems in an exam, I'm doing basically exactly the same thing. And this will not surprise any of you. It's basically IRAC. Identify the issues, what are the rules, so what is the law, apply the law, reach a conclusion, it's most likely a tentative conclusion, and then, so that's IRAC, and then there is an equal number of points for your writing like a lawyer, your referencing, complying with the rules. Again, I will go through all of that stuff in a lot more detail in actual classes, but just strategically, if you're doing any kind of assessment task, it makes sense to go back always, make sure you know what you're being assessed on and how the person who's marking your work is, what they're going to take into account when they do it. Sorry, I can see there's something in chat I haven't seen. Hi, Isabel, thanks for joining us. Okay, so, but what's the best way to get around? Basically, one way to think of Canvas is like an online textbook. And again, this will be the same in each of your subjects in the sense of the philosophy behind it. But the modules page is basically the way to navigate the actual textbook part. So they're called modules. Each one of these grey boxes is a module. Those little triangles, down means it's already extended. Up means we can put it away. If this is one of the first subjects that you're doing, and look, and it's not, I know anybody's doing one subject only and is just beginning is not doing this subject, I hope. They're doing intro. So you're either doing this in your first semester simultaneously with intro or something else, or maybe a couple of other things, or you've already had a semester or so. One of the things that you will find, oh, where's it go? Isn't that interesting? I was just about to say, in every course, and I'm looking at this and they've disappeared. In every single course, there is a setting up for success module and an orientation module. And clearly they've disappeared in this particular iteration today. That must be RMIT Online doing something crazy. I'll find out where they are and make sure they go back. But they have some quite useful materials about being able to access the library, etc. Basically, the content in the course starts with the welcome module, which today, surprisingly, is the very first module that you can see. So, welcome staff, not particularly exciting, but worth actually working your way through. There is a copy, a printable copy of the learning guide. So the actual content that's in these modules, some of you will find that useful. The other thing that many of you might not be aware that you can do is that you can actually make an ebook of any of your courses, so you can download it, which you do through the setting up your own profile. There's a setting there that will allow you, in fact, why don't I just show you very quickly now. If you go into the settings, one of the things that you can do somewhere is you can download course content. So when you hit that button, you're seeing the teaching version at the moment, but that is available in the student version as well, or it should be. And you can basically create a file that you could then turn into a PDF and print if you find that useful. I'm not fussed about that stuff, but you do have open book exams, so some of you will find it very useful to have printed versions that you can take into an exam. Then basically we have two things to look out for. One is the topics, and the second is recordings and slides. So what will happen is in week one, we did topic one. Week one follows with, thank God, this semester's recording and slides. Topic two is actually going to carry over two different weeks. So these are happening in order. Here is the content for topic two. After class, I will upload the recordings and slides that I use. So the slide handouts are there as a PDF already. As I mentioned in the class, I usually have a pretty good look at the slides and think about how I'm going to present the class in the day of the class or the day before, depending on how it goes. And often I change the slides at the last minute, especially as I get to know you a bit and I get a sense of what your interests might be, or where I think I might need to move a bit slower, a little bit quicker, or my experience based on the previous year of where we got stuck and it seemed to take us too long to get somewhere, those kind of things. So I have the slides there for you because I know you want them, but I might change what I present to you. I might change the order, I might omit some slides, I might add some new ones each time around. In the middle of, between week 2 and 3, you will get your assessment, first assessment, and as you can see here, there are already some materials there to help you start thinking about that. Personally, they're there because I know from experience that many students want them in advance. I would be patient, Grasshopper. I would work on the basis that we've done this a number of times before, that people get there. This is not a course where many people fail. It feels like one of the more difficult courses, particularly at the beginning, and there's a lot of new things to learn. But we work really hard to make sure that you get everything in a logical way so you can scaffold and build and you can learn what you need to learn. So just try and be a little bit patient and go through the process. And I wish I could remember the name of the guy from the Karate Kid so I could make that pop culture reference, but I can't right now. Topic 3 will also go for 2 weeks. Topic 3 is the first one that introduces this idea of the desk lectures. Some feedback I got a couple of years ago now was, particularly for some topics for online, where we have a lot of interaction in the classroom, that it became really frustrating for a lot of OUA students because there was a sort of too much conversation. It was too hard to unpick which bit was the lecture. And I really like to have a very interactive classroom if I can. So for a number of the topics, I've created sort of shorter desk lectures. So in fact, let's have a look in here so you can see how they work. So they're basically, the idea is to have shorter lectures with content in them, just with me lecturing, and I call them a desk lecture because I do them sitting here in fact, standing here at this desk. And so, YouTube has this way of just capturing you with your mouth open every time with some sort of funny face on. Oh, look at that, beautiful. And so from these, that sort of gives you a more concise way of working through the content, and then means I ask the face-to-face students to look at those as well, and that means in class we can do, and I still record the classes, but we can have a lot more interaction, we can play some games, we can do some quizzes, those kinds of things. But you can see that just looking at the syllabus, I hope, is not really enough to get your head around what you need to do to prepare for this class. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a guide of how to work through it. And that is the combination of the modules and the calendar, I think, should map out for you a really pretty straightforward way of working through. Any questions, comments, observations, thoughts?
No, that was really good. I didn't know any of that.
Oh, good. Well, not good that you didn't know. Well, the thing is too, every class is a little bit different. Like there's a lot of, we're all trying to set up Canvas in the same way, but it feels to me there's a bit of a missing link between what we know we're trying to do for you and you actually understanding what you're supposed to be looking out for. We just haven't been, I don't think we've been explicit about that. And the reality is you have to kind of get into Canvas and into the modules in order to find the bit that says this is how we're going to work in this course. And yeah, that's kind of a little bit crazy. And it's kind of throwing me that the orientation modules aren't there. So I will have to work out what's happened. Maybe they've changed it from, they keep changing things. The online stuff looks a lot prettier, mostly, by the way. There's a lot of investment has gone into making sure you get these lovely, and of course the first one I opened doesn't have it. You have these lovely headings. Oh, the other thing with contract law, a few years ago, David Goodwin, who's now heads up the MBA program, maybe I'm in the face-to-face one. That's why. There you go, isn't that? That's embarrassing. They will look very, very similar though. That's why I can't tell. And I have to remember numbers, and I'm really not a numbers person. I'm a person. So you see how they look very similar. But once you go into the modules, let's see if you've got the setting up for success. And yeah, see, your course orientation, everything is there. I don't know what they've done. Anyway, very strange, but they're all the same. You know, it's all exactly the same content. This is the same class. Anyway. One of the things that you'll see with each of the topics is the introduction, or first page of the topic will have a quick little video that David Goodwin made a little while ago. So, which is just sort of the high level overview of what's happening in this course. And they can be quite useful to have a look at as well. Another thing actually that came out in the lecture, just in case you haven't had time to read it, listen to it yet, textbook. So Patterson, Robinson and Duke and the contract cases and materials, these are recommended textbooks. They're not prescribed textbooks. That is solely because the university has rules now that mean we're not allowed to prescribe a textbook. But this course was completely built around this textbook. So they are expensive. If you can only buy one and not the other, think about your own style and what's going to help you more. I find the text is more useful because you can always find the cases online. You can do the research to read them anyway, but many people prefer getting to read the cases themselves directly, and they appreciate that it's the right extracts have been provided. The reality is it's possible to do this without these texts, but it does require a lot more work. You've kind of got to work out what the chapters are, and then you have to look for that text elsewhere. Now, there are a number of other really good Australian textbooks that are available and can be easily bought secondhand. By the way, there are a number of copies of this in the library, and somebody in class actually said, and I wasn't aware of this, that the e-books are available for borrowing in the library as well. They certainly weren't last semester, so if that's actually true, that's really useful for people as well, because I don't know about you, but I find Control F is much better at finding things for me than my eyes are, but it could just be my middle-aged eyes. But the other thing is that the RMIT library has a number of database services, including a number of services that support legal information. And Carter on contract and the CCH, I think it's still called CCH, Australian Contract Law Service, Hallsbury's Contract Law and Australian Contract Law are all available online. So once you know what the topic is, you can actually read materials online. Of course, open book exams, you're not allowed to take electronic information in with you or electronic devices in with you. We could debate till the cows come home about how that's ridiculous, because no lawyer in the real world is ever going to rely just on a textbook that could well be out of date. But I really shouldn't have Facebook messages popping up while I'm in class. Did you see those? Oh, good to know. I took a group to Vietnam recently, and every time I come back from Vietnam, I have like 15 Vietnamese people who send me Facebook messages every 5 minutes. It's lovely of them, but it just kind of gets in my head after a while. Yeah, so there are different ways of looking at it, but if you can afford the textbook, that is well and truly the easiest way to do it. Okay, so next thing I wanted to talk to you about quickly was assignments. So there are basically 3 lots of assignments. We'll do them one by one. So for you, that didn't make sense before. Why was it saying that the online, I'm got myself confused. It looks like something's gone funny in Canvas, because if I was in the face-to-face bit before, why is it telling us that the face-to-face students have this 5% total when they don't? Anyway, so the first assignment, well, the first lot of assignments we're doing will be your discussion board tasks. It's a really good idea to do a couple of these early on, because they will provide some feed forward on doing your first memorandum to your boss. These are pretty straightforward, short assignments. I've already spoken about them at some length. So just give me a second to open up. You'll basically see most of them come from the study guide. Most of them, if you work through the exercises in the online text, you will see them. They've been taken from previous exams, that kind of thing. So they basically, so you have a problem. Here's your problem. And then basically you insert your answer. Easy peasy. When you've inserted your answer, so often the best way to do it, because it can be frustrating working online, and you can see you've still got these tools, but I think the best way to do it is type your answer in your word processing tool of choice, Word or Google Words or Apple Word or whatever, and then cut and paste into this and save and submit. So that way your formatting will stick, that way your footnotes will work. You don't have to work out any of that sort of business. Once you've posted your reply, if anybody else has replied, so if anybody else has put an answer in, you'll be able to see their answers as well, and they'll be able to see yours, but only people who submit. I will sometimes give general feedback to the whole group. I will always give individual feedback to each of you. It might take me a week or more to get it to you, but you will get some individual feedback if you submit. And I've already talked at some length about how they work. So then the first main assignment was 20% for the face-to-face students and 15% for the OUA students. Will be writing a memo of advice. So you will get a relatively complex problem. It hasn't been released now, so I won't bother messing around with any of this, although I'll probably give you something to, I can't remember if the rubric's in there or not. I don't think it is yet. So on Friday in week 2, this will be replaced with a problem. You will get a rubric it'll all make sense. And you will need to submit here. This box means that it's going through Turnitin. So the discussion pieces aren't going through Turnitin, but that doesn't mean that I can't check whether there's plagiarism or not. So please don't go there. So when you actually submit your responses, then I will provide feedback. Feedback won't be released. It's usually for at least, it's usually 2 weeks pretty much on the nose. For a range of different reasons, because even when I've got the feedback done sooner, I can't release the feedback until everybody has actually submitted, and there's always a few stragglers. And the way that it works is if you submit late, and by late I mean they're due at 11:59 p.m. If you submit at midnight or afterwards, I don't care if it's 30 seconds or 1 hour or 23 hours, it will be, you will get a deduction of 10%. So it's marked out of 100, your mark will be reduced by 10. And basically that happens until, for every day that it's late, until you hit 0. So, and after 10 days after, I don't actually even have to give you any feedback. In fact, I'm told not to give you feedback. So there are always some stragglers. Please don't let that be you, because it just, to be quite frank, it just breaks my heart to, especially when people do good work, to just have to take the marks away from them. So many of you will be thinking, well, why, if I'm a minute late, does that matter? And the answer is, yeah, it does matter. It matters for a range of reasons, not the least of which is it's unfair to the people who really organise themselves to make sure that they could get it in on time. Secondly, you are not going to make something 11% better after midnight anywhere in the world. So if you think about it, I think of it as a GST on lateness. If you actually have to make it 11% better in order to get the benefit of doing it late. So I would rather that if you just haven't finished and you're not going to finish, I would rather you put your pen down or put your keyboard away, or however you want to look at it, you go to bed and you get up fresh and you do it properly the next day. And yeah, you're going to suffer that 10%, but you are more likely to actually achieve that 11% that it wouldn't otherwise have been to just come in even, and maybe even the 15% you need to make it worthwhile. But on the whole, we just need to stick with the dates. It's frustrating. People have technical issues. If you're having technical issues, make sure you let me know. An email before midnight with a copy of your assignment that says, I can't work out how to submit, here it is. And then you can get some help the next day and you work out how to do it. I can live with that, but it's when it just doesn't come through, it's always going to be late. I will give you a lot of feed forward about the assignment in class. You'll get a much better sense of what the requirements are. We'll do that in week 3. And yeah, it's just, you'll have enough time over the weekend to start thinking about the problem, and then we'll do some work on it in class. Then later on in the semester, after the break, you will be required to do another supporting memorandum to your boss. And then you will also write a letter of advice to your client. So the first task requires you to solve a relatively complex legal problem and explain the answer to a lawyer using legal language. The next time around, you've got to do the same thing again. So you've got the benefit of having done it once before, and you get to sort of work from the feedback from that. But then you need to translate that correspondence with a lawyer into appropriate language for somebody who has no legal training. And then at the end of the semester, 50% of your mark will be an exam. It will be an open book exam in week 12, where we do nothing other than revise. I will talk a bit about exam technique then, and I'll go through how the exam is structured. Questions, concerns, frustrations?
Can I just ask the referencing for the discussion boards? Is that AGLC or?
Yes, it is AGLC 3. So when you've done, when you did intro, you would have had an introduction to that. You will have your blue book somewhere. I'm looking for mine so I can wave it around. It's somewhere in this pile around me. I'm just back from Vietnam and I'm messier than usual. Little tip for the uninitiated. AGLC 3, the guide is online. And it's surprising the things that it covers. And again, Control F can be your friend. So bring it up as the PDF online. And if you're thinking, I wonder where I'm thinking about footnotes. What do I need to know about footnotes? Control F footnotes, find the relevant section and you can read it. Or if you're thinking, this has come from an online encyclopedia, how do I reference that? Or where do I put the dates? Just even if you're not really sure about how to do it, just checking, even if you think you know how to do it, just have a look. It works really well. The other thing that the library has is an easy cite tool, which gives really good examples of how it works. So that can be really quite handy to use as well. AGLC it's not intuitive, and many of you have done degrees previously, particularly if you've used Harvard or Chicago or one of those APA referencing styles. The thing I see happen a lot is people will give me a case name and then put bracket the year, close bracket, and then they'll put the rest of the reference in the footnote. Or they'll, on Monday we'll be in the class, I'll be talking a lot about a very famous case, Carl Hill and carbolic smoke ball. And so people will put Carl Hill v, which we say as and, unless we're talking about American cases, Carl Hill and carbolic smoke ball bracket 1859, or you're going to catch me here, I don't remember the year that it is. And that's because that's what they did with Harvard and APA. In fact, unless you're going to put the full string citation in the text, you need to take everything, including the year in brackets down, and put it into the footnote. Sorry, I do rabbit on if somebody says something that reminds me that I need to tell you something. So yes, definitely AGLC 3 all the way through your degree, unless you're specifically told something else. Okay, I think they're the key things I wanted to talk about this time. I know a number of people had trouble getting hold of the lecture recording. Have all of you had a chance to have a listen to that? I have already put up some audio only recordings, and I will continue to do that because a couple of students have asked for it. But I suspect the messy way that I talk to class, that the videos will often be a little bit more useful to most of you, as you can follow along which way the slides work. I'm a great believer that the slides are just an anchor point for a conversation, and that we should be having as much of a conversation in class as possible.
Yeah. I didn't have any problems. I used your link and it was fine. I know discussion board, people had problems.
There was just an extra link. There was an extra link that it was actually in the modules area that I don't know how it had stayed in there. Hopefully there aren't too many more of those, but it's quite hard to see things that are hangovers from the last semester that need to be taken away. So there was always one that worked, and then there was one that didn't work. And so a number of people had problems with that. So anyway, we got there in the end somehow. So that's really all I wanted to talk about today. I'd really like to get to know you guys a little bit better. Susan, we worked together very briefly in intro last year.
Yes, you were my first tutor.
My first, yeah, well, I just was doing the assignment, nothing else, but I really enjoyed doing that. I was overseas this year, so I couldn't get involved this time round. Although actually my feedback to Anne was I thought it was probably better that she does it, because it's such a great way to get to know the OUA students, and it was really quite fun to do. last time around from my point of view. I'm not sure it was so much fun for you guys. You were all in the fire hydrant a little bit.
Yeah, thrown into the deep end, definitely.
Oh, that's all right. You survived. You're still here. I won't ask whether you're doing intro again, and if you are, whether it's my fault.
No, I don't have to do intro again, luckily enough.
Good to know, good to know. And Isabel, actually, you did that too last year, didn't you? I can't see your face. Now I can.
I'm just turning myself on. It's so loud here. I don't know if you can hear me at all. I work as an opera singer, and I'm on tour with a circus tent, which I will show you briefly. There you go. I've run out.
Wow.
So, yes, it's been fun doing study on the road. And I worked with you in, I did intro last semester as well.
Yeah, now I remember. So
Yeah.
I'm much better with a face than I am with a name. And then I just
down in the light. There we go.
Yes,
Hi.
I remember.
I don't always study with false eyelashes, but there we go.
Well, I just took mine off because I didn't want to be the only one.
Of course.
Okay, note to self, I'm going to ask Isabel how on earth people actually get false eyelashes on, because that's something that has absolutely fascinated me for years.
I can help you with that. I did many, many ballet concerts as a child. So.
And what opera are you performing in?
So I'm singing with a circus show at the moment, which is called Rouge, and we're in Mackay this week, which is warm and a nice change from freezing cold Melbourne.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that's me. But arts is a very unstable environment to work in, and I had a tour that was pushed back a couple of years ago to now happening this year. But I had a year where I hadn't had a job in a very long time, and I got a bit of a fright, and so I'm sort of retraining to have things to do when I'm not.
Yeah.
Running away with the circus. So that's me. Yeah.
Well, that's yes, of course. I'm sure you're very bored with people cautioning you about how the legal profession is being disrupted, but there are many things that one can do with a law degree. I found mine has been particularly handy to me. I've been enjoying it. So, and given that I actually celebrate 30 years since I was admitted next year, I really, if I didn't like it, I really should be out by now, right?
Yeah. So I'm finding it so interesting, and I'm really enjoying it so far.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah. Well, I must admit, I have never, ever had a class with somebody who's outside a circus tent before. So I think that's a highlight. I'm excited.
There you go. All right. Thank you. I'll put myself back on mute because it's so loud here.
No, that's lovely. Thank you for joining in. I think it's great for everybody to meet you.
Cheers.
And hey, Min, so I know I think you're unable to actually talk with us, but is this your first semester? Are you able to just say something in the chat? First time in. Excellent. So, Min, welcome. Yeah, it's a little bit, when the technology doesn't work for you, or when you're technology constrained, it can be quite difficult. But I think these, your mouse isn't working. That makes it a little bit more frustrating as well. At the end of the day, if you're going to study online, you kind of have to embrace the technology and find the thing that works for you. Having said that, as you can see, I'm using a system that I use for my own consulting business, and not using the system I'm supposed to use, actually largely due to how disastrous it was trying to work with you, Susan, and Isabel last year with one of the most frustrating online conversations I think I've ever had in my life. It just scarred me so much. I haven't even tried again, to be quite frank. So if any of you are actually successfully using Blackboard or Collaborate or whatever that thing is that we're supposed to be using, and it works well, please do send me a note and tell me it's fixed. But I'm just going to continue on this way since it pretty much works. And David, can you introduce yourself and tell it? I haven't worked with you before, have I?
No, this is my first tutorial of the course.
Nice.
So I literally, I had a bit of a an existential crisis about a month ago, because I've been living with my cousin for a year and a half. It's just a one-bedroom apartment. He's just been sleeping on the lounge. He's 20 years old. He moved up from country Victoria, and he just works full time, comes home and just plays video games all day. And
Sounds like my son.
and I realized I was kind of falling into a similar pattern, and I just went, and also then Malcolm Turnbull scared everyone by saying we're going to have to work until we're 70. And I just went, I'm actually on my 15-year-long service leave as we speak. And I just went, I can't do this job for another 25 years, mainly because it probably won't be here after another 5 or so.
So what do you do, David?
I work for a company called Red Bee Media. We're owned by Ericsson, and we do captions for deaf and hearing impaired.
All right, yeah.
So, but the industry is like running out of money. The broadcasters don't want to pay for it. They're trying to.
And it's completely being disrupted by technology. I know. I didn't know until quite recently, because when I do the recordings, so I record my voice. I try everything I know about making a video is that the better the quality of the audio is, the more likely you are to be able to listen to it.
Yep.
So I go to a reasonable amount of trouble to make sure that the audio is okay in the classes. And then I basically sync the audio to the video and I upload it. And the easiest way is for me to upload it to YouTube and then link the YouTube videos.
Yeah.
Turns out YouTube is automatically captioning me.
Yeah.
Often I sound like I speak in haiku, which I think is kind of nice. No punctuation, but then the way I speak in real life has no punctuation, clearly.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's actually amazing. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of our clients are pushing for what we call ASR, automatic speech recognition, and I work mainly with the live captioners, so people who are like stenographers and people who are repeating what's being said and things like that. But so the automatic stuff is going to come in a lot for pre-prepared programs and things like that. They'll just run a soap opera or something through some software, generate some text, and then yeah. And so yeah, there's less money. The industry's shrinking, and I just thought, I'm kind of in a position now where I've got the time. I can, devote some, energy to
muscle.
Yeah. So this is good. I'm really looking forward to it.
Good. And so one of the things I really tried to highlight in class, and my tongue is a little bit in my cheek about it, because RMIT has a fabulous public lawyer program, and there's some amazing academics who work in the human rights space in particular, but across a range of different public law issues, which is fabulous and I think makes the world a better place. But I'm not one of them. I am an out and out old fashioned commercial lawyer. Like, I did a couple of projects while I was at law school that made me decide, and research projects sort of shortly afterwards, they made me decide that I never really wanted to deal with people. I only wanted to deal with money. So I teach this very much from a commercial perspective. And I think, and I came across this new word recently, I was saying it in class, somebody in Vietnam was calling me a pracademic. And that's what I think I am. I'm not really a traditional academic at all. I have been doing this work and working particularly in the commercial space and dealing with contracts, particularly unique and bespoke contracts where, parties reach an arrangement and then they need someone to write that arrangement down. I've been doing that kind of work for the last 30 years. And so it's very much informed by the cases, but I'm not a litigator, I'm a lover, not a fighter. And so I very much approach it from the point of view of what can we learn from the cases about how to get the contracts right. So one of the, my little expressions, you'll hear me say this, I've got a very limited number of jokes. I would not be able to pull off show business, Isabel. But basically trying to work out how to write a contract by only speaking to or only looking at cases is like trying to work out how to have a happy marriage by only speaking to divorced people, or trying to work out how to raise children by only speaking to the Department of Health and Community Services. Or my guess is trying to work out how to run a marathon by only speaking to knee surgeons. Like, you know, at the end of the day, the things that go wrong, they inform us, but they're only part of the picture. So what I really want to do and I also think this is the wrong name for this subject. It's called Fundamentals of Contract Law, but it really should be called How to Make a Contract. And Advanced Contract, which lots of people are really scared about, but it's actually significantly easier in many ways because you've got the fundamentals. Advanced Contract is how contracts end. That's it. And it will surprise you perhaps to realise that most contracts end because the parties do what they say they're going to do. And there are many arrangements that are never technically contracts, which there's never a fight about. People do what they say they're going to do. So from next week onwards, we'll actually start unpicking what a contract is, or we'll finish that process. I didn't quite get through everything this week. And we will start really looking at the first ingredients. So you'll have this mantra very soon, but a contract is made up of, every time, these things. Agreement, which itself is made up of offer and acceptance, but sometimes you won't be able to find them both, so we have consensus in some way. So agreement. We then have consideration. For the point of our discussion right now, think of consideration as price. It's not exactly that, but that's enough to get us started. Intention. So we need to know that the parties intended their arrangement to be legally binding. And lastly, certainty. So we need to be certain as to what the subject matter of the contract is, what promises were made, and what the consequences of breaking the promises were. So that's what we're going to start, but we're going to spend 2 weeks on what it means to have an agreement. And then we're going to spend 2 weeks on consideration. So we're going to do a very deep dive into each of them. And then we start to get a bit quicker because to a certain extent, even though I say we're only talking about agreement, we'll tap forward into some things a little bit. And you'll see that it all fits together at the end. So that's all I really want to talk about today. And we've been going pretty much just on an hour. So unless anybody's got any questions, concerns, frustrations, thoughts, you all know how to contact me, right? Mm-hmm. I'm pretty easy to get by email. I will get back to you in 48 hours. I'll usually get back to you quicker than that. If it's urgent though and you're stressed, it's better for you to actually just call me or send me a text message. The first time that, like, I will never pick up the phone to somebody that I don't know when it doesn't suit me, or when I'm with somebody else or I'm in a meeting. So if I don't know you and we've not spoken on the phone before, you need to leave a message that says, I'm Isabel from your online contract class. Can you call me, please? If you don't leave me a message, I won't return. But even better, send me a text message and say, I'm Haymin from your online contract class. I don't understand why XYZ is important, or whatever your particular question is. And then I at least can have a look at what I need, have a think about it before I ring you, and you're not waiting for me to find something in Canvas. Even better, if you say, I've sent you an email. If you're stressed about it, just contact me with a text message. If you're having problems with anything in Canvas, one of the best things to do is just copy and paste the URL of the page that's not making sense to you, or you can't find something on, and send that to me in an email as well. So then I can look at the same thing you're looking at. Just saves us both time. I'm on WhatsApp as well for anybody who's listening who's overseas. Sometimes WhatsApp is easier. I can actually type on my computer, so it's quicker for me, and I don't have to text like an old lady. But do feel free to use whatever means to contact me. And yeah, the way I see it, we're all on the same team. So again, just as I want to respect your time, which means I need to finish up, I trust you to respect mine. So yeah, we'll get there. I'm hoping if you're in Melbourne, that we'll see you in class at some point if you're interested in doing that. And there's also some drinks on the 27th for the MBAs and the law students, and it's a really good way, particularly if you're new, to meet a few people. My MBA students will be wearing false beards, or they just have beards, but I won't explain that for now. All right, everybody, have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And yeah, for those of you on the recording, hopefully that was helpful to you.